everybody, and welcome to Faith Clinic. Well, we love being here with you, and I hope you enjoy this as much as we do. You know, Bill, I tell people I would rather speak to people that want to hear what I have to say more than I want to say it. It makes
good.
a far better, experience for both of us. And so I'm enjoying these moments that I have with my friend Bill McGrain. And we're going to talk to him about some special things he has coming up. But what I want to really do is I want to tell you about October the 23rd. I want you to come and be with us. I don't really press people to come. If you want to come,
Now,
we'd love
check,
for
you
you
just
to
said
be with us.
October 23rd. You mean November the 23rd.
How did I say October?
See,
Well,
I'm really listening to you.
Well, I appreciate it. I hope they are.
November the 23rd.
November the 23rd, we're going to have a big day at Heritage Fellowship. You know, there was a guy on the radio, used to be on the radio in Texas. He was on one of the 50,000 watt stations that would go all over America. And he'd come on there and he'd say, I know who you think it is. It's that guy again. It's Brother George. You don't want to listen to Brother George because you don't know if he has anything to say or not. Brother George is here on the radio. And tell people not to listen to him. Well, every once in a while we'll make a mistake, but when we pick it up, people can remember it better. So November the 23rd, that's a Sunday, we're going to have a free meal. You say, well, there is no free meals. Yes, there is. We're going to have a free Thanksgiving meal. We have food for about 500 people. We want you to come and be with us. You want a free meal? This is the place to come. We're going to do something I've never done before. I love to see people's faces when I ask them the question, Bill, when's the last time you did something for the first time? But actually, we're going to do something for the first time. It's something that's going to be great. We've had a lot of wonderful experiences. We've had amazing things that have happened here, just like other churches have over the years. But we're going to share something very special on November 23rd. So one service only, 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and then we'll have a wonderful meal afterwards, Thanksgiving meal. We want to invite you to come and be a part. You know, I was thinking, Bill, about your particular ministry and what you and your wife Linda do, and we wish you could be with us. You makes us look a lot better.
Absolutely.
But we're so thankful you could be with me. I want to talk about some of the things that you're involved in here at the end of the year. You've got an interest in training others to do what you do.
Yes.
And that's a special class that's going to take place. Would you tell them about that for us today?
Well, you know, for 2 generations, my parents started our organization, and I grew up around it, thought everybody knew these things, and found out most people don't.
Yeah.
And so Linda and I have really felt that the Lord's been putting on our heart is to equip other people with the skills that we've learned generationally. And sometimes, you know, just like you take things for granted, the gifts that God's given you. And so we have put together a program that we're calling the Kingdom Coach Mastermind.
Now, wait just a moment. The Kingdom Coach Mastermind. I've got a feeling you want to listen to this. There are people that are trying to find their place in the kingdom of God, find their place in the church. And this is a wonderful course that's being made available to you that you could learn maybe something that's in you that needs to be let out. I call it, of course, motivational gifting, but you've got a special class that they're offering. I want him to talk to us about this where we can hear exactly your heart.
Well, you know, many times people have a feeling that the Lord's given them a gift to make a difference in people's lives. And so a lot of people, they look for credentials. So they go to school and they get an education, and because now they have a piece of paper that makes them official, that they can go out and train people. So when I was writing up what we're going to do with this, the people that we're really wanting to connect with on this, the Kingdom Coach Mastermind, we equip world leaders, counselors, coaches, and ministries to heal hearts, restore individuals, marriages and families, to transform generations, to take nations for Christ. And then we shorten that. We want to equip leaders with the tools and training to heal hearts and homes, transform generations, and take the nations for Christ.
That's where it starts, right in the home.
So we realize that many people have a calling to make a difference, but they think they've got to have a degree or they've got to do something to be official. And so we're looking for this year in 2026 is to find 12 apostles, 12 people. The Lord knew what he was doing. We figured we'll find 12 people who want to be equipped and trained in the skills that we've learned in 2 generations, not just on personal development, but also their spiritual development.
Sure.
Because if you don't align those two, as you know, you're not going to make a transformational change in a person's life. And so the first part of the Kingdom Coach Mastermind training is there's going to be levels to this. This is going to be probably a several-year process. It's not something that you're going to get instantly. And whether you're somebody who doesn't have any training at all, you just know the Lord's calling you in your heart to make a difference in people's lives, or you're a professional and you want to take it to the next level, this is a training that someone can go from level to level and be prepared so that they can do what God's given them to do.
Well, I've enjoyed the class that I went, and you were training, Fortune 500 people that had high positions in life, executives in corporations, but for some reason they fell through the cracks. And I sat there and I watched you communicate with him. What he's saying is he is trying to do his best to use the gifting God has given him generationally through his father and mother, who were very good in this very thing. It's important for us to follow that path that leads to peace. And he's followed a path all his lifetime to train people, to help people, to reach people, to change their lives, as he calls transformation. I think of these that I sat with you and listened to you teaching them. It made me think of that verse over in the Song of Solomon, chapter 6. It says, "They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept." So many people like that, Bill, who have been private failures but public successes. And it's easy for that to happen because people can wear masks.
Yeah.
They've got masks that they can wear with their families, masks that they wear with their business associates, masks that they wear with their clients. You're dealing with people that have masks, and to the point that they're really not even comfortable in their own skin. They don't know who they are.
Well, oftentimes what successful, quote unquote, externally successful people do is they're filling a void in their life. So they didn't have enough money growing up, and so they made a lot of money. Or they didn't have healthy relationships, so they got involved in relationships and found out that they weren't doing that in the right way. And then as a result of that, they think they get married and their spouse is going to fix them, right? Well, that doesn't work because the spouse tries to fix us, especially guys. We don't like to be fixed. No. And so therefore the man doesn't feel respected, the woman doesn't feel loved, and as a result there's a consequence. So we're really calling all people who are felt and lead, they really want to be led into what they're really supposed to be doing. And oftentimes you might have gifting in one area of your life, but you haven't got the full package. And what you were just talking about is so often people have got the external going well, but the internal, when they go home at night,
falling apart.
It's painful. And when they're alone, when they're trying to deal with things, they don't have the coping skills. And so the first part of what we do with people is to give clarity, help them get clear on where they are with themselves, where they are with the Lord. Because if you don't align those two things, you're not going to have long-term success. You can have short-term success, but you really want to look at the long haul. And that's what we want to prepare people for, is to be used as God designed them to be. You know, people think that you and we just do this easily. It's not easy to do what we do.
You know, I don't think I've ever told you, I may have, but I don't think I've told you. You remember Success Motivation Institute?
Sure do.
That was out of Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
Well, we lived there.
Oh.
I lived right across the street from the vice president at Success Motivation Institute. Down the street, I lived across the in the same half a block away from the guy that was the president of SMI. Wow. And so I was around those guys, and I would talk to them when I was cutting grass in the summertime, and we would go out and we would meet with R.E. Bob Moore, who was a legend at motivating people. And one day Bob told me, he said that he got a phone call, and it was from a wife of a guy that had just paid a lot of money to go through SMI. And so he said, "May I help you?" And she said, "Yes." She said, my husband is one of your students that's just gone, your clientele that's just gone through your training." He said, "Well, that's wonderful. That sounds, what can I do for you?" And said, he went out and he bought a whole new wardrobe. Bought a $600 suit. He had monogrammed, sleeves on his shirts, because Texas, they do it high fashion. And he had all of his clothes taken to the cleaners, and they're starched just exactly right. He bought a $500 pair of shark skin shoes, and said he brought power ties that he would wear for certain days. He gets up in the morning and he puts on his jogging suit, and it was a fashion suit that cost him about $350. He put on his expensive running shoes. He goes out, he runs for a mile or two. He comes back. He goes and he takes a shower. He's getting ready for the day. He gets in front of the mirror and he says, "You are a success. You are a success. You're a success." I said, "Well, that's wonderful. That's what we've taught him to do." He said, "There's just one problem." I said, "What is the problem?" He said, "He never leaves the house." And I thought about that a lot, because I think there's a lot of people that they've got a desire to be a success. They've got a desire. Now, this was Baptist motivated, really. Yeah. And a lot of what they dealt with had scripture in it. Mm-hmm. But I've noticed that there's people that, maybe they don't have that experience. Maybe they didn't have that finance. Maybe they started their business in a garage, mm-hmm. and now they're multimillionaires. I have friends like that. Mm-hmm. I had a friend that during World War II, he was working in a salvage yard, and a guy came by and he said he had a load of cloth, entire boxcar load of cloth, and he would sell it to him for a cheap price. Bought it for probably $200 in World War II for an entire boxcar. Well, he bought that, and then he took it and he went out and sold, cloth to use for rags in shops and different places, and he probably, made 100 times his money. Well, the next time a guy comes by and he's got baling wire. This is a true story. He buys the baling wire, and he buys it for a certain price. Then he goes out, he sells it to the farmers for fencing, and he sells it to people that needed baling wire to bale, packages and certain things that they want to ship, and he just succeeded like that. He became the 8th leading hydraulics genius in the world, and he had an 8th grade education. His name was Fred Mosley, and he was the one that created the machine that would box automobiles and take and separate all the glass, and just you see these trucks going down the road and they're boxes of metal, and it's just a square of metal. Well, that was an automobile. And so then he would sell that machine. And so I began to think about him starting out like that. But you've dealt with men exactly like that who've become great successes, but then they became private failures. And what you deal with, and you have a desire to find 12 people. That's what Jesus did. Robert E. Coleman was a Methodist preacher, a professor at Asbury, and he wrote a book, The Training of the 12. It was the most successful book on evangelism that has ever been written. And Billy Graham took it and he used it in all of his crusades. That would be one reason to make it a success. But there's a spark, there's a key, there's something that you found that you can help people discover themselves. A lot of times we just don't know ourselves, and we don't know our gifting.
And it begins with a decision to ask yourself the question, what's God calling me to do? When I was 25, I was walking down a street in Clifton, here in Cincinnati area, and just didn't think about anything. And all of a sudden I hear the Lord say to me, Bill, I'm going to give you the systems, the infrastructure, the finances, and the team of people to heal the emotional wounds of the world.
Wow.
And I said, who, me? That's scary. Yeah. And so I said, well, Lord, what do I do next? He said, don't sweat the details. Yeah. I'll take care of that. Yeah. You know, there's a phrase that it's not important to know where you're going. It's just important to go. Yeah. And so oftentimes what people want, and these 12 ambassadors, we're going to call them, who are being trained by us, we're wanting these people to be people who, whether they've got backgrounds in professional work or not, they just feel that there's something, a missing piece that they want to take to the next level. So you don't need a degree. We're going to help you get the certification that you need. So if you need papers to prove you're valid, we're going to equip you with that. But what's really more important is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's it.
And that's part of what you've been as a success, is you've been a relationship builder. You've been creating a family heritage environment. And that's been a model to Linda and I and all the people that, you know, what have we been here with you, 16, 17 years now?
A long time.
And so when we were looking for a church to go to, we were looking for MEAT, meat, substance, not fluff, not somebody just giving you basic information about the Word of God. And when people really want to go deep, they're going to find answers, because the Lord doesn't prepare you with something inside your heart that he's going to let not be successful. You have to take that risk. And so anyone who's really feeling called to this, just get in touch with us, and later I guess we can tell them how they can do that.
You can do it online.
They can do it online?
That's very important for people to realize today. Busy people. Look, if I want something done, I don't ask a guy that I know is lazy. I don't ask a guy that's on a minimum wage job. I ask the busiest people that I know if they can help me get it done. You know what they're going to do? They're going to get it done.
Right.
Because they're motivated that way. And think about what I'm saying. That's what you're trying to find. That's what you will find, I should say, because I believe this is something for right now that will help people. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody's like me. My wife is not like me. She said, if I was like you, we'd be camping on the moon. And yet I understand what she's saying. And light poles repel. We know about that.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is giving people an opportunity where maybe they're already out of college and still not satisfied. Mm-hmm. And I'm just so surprised at what I'm hearing today. I've heard, you know, these guys that are educators say, don't go to college. Yeah. Don't go to school to be a lawyer, because you can get a lawyer, you can do your own work online as a lawyer. I had a friend in high school that wrote a book in Texas, How to Get a Divorce in Texas for $50. That was a bestseller. I mean, think about it, How to Get a Divorce. And he was a lawyer, an attorney, and his father was a very famous man, and very successful. And so what happened is that people purchased that. There's somebody that, I say it like this, we are just one revelation away from a breakthrough. This could be their revelation. For somebody that's serious about being successful, we're not saying, look, the world uses the church as Methodist. It just does. The children of this world are wiser than the children of light. You've had to deal with that always. But I want you to understand that there are people that are in the church that have potential. Did I ever tell you about Fuzzy Zeller?
No.
He took John Daly out to a golf course over across the river from Louisville. They were playing, you know, one of the great tournaments at Valhalla. And what happened is that John Daly just blew up. He got 18 on one hole. Of course, he's notorious for doing something like that. Them saying that he was probably the greatest natural golfer that ever played. I mean, golfers said that about John Daly. But he just really messed up. And so Fuzzy Zeller got him in the car, and he drove him out across into Indiana where he lives. He has a golf course over there. And he took him over to a cemetery, pulled him out in the cemetery, and he said, Fuzzy said, John, what do you see? He liked John Daly. He saw the potential. A lot of them did. He said, what do you see? He said, what do you mean? We're sitting in the middle of this graveyard. All I see is these tombstones. He said, what else do you see? He said, well, I see the trees. I see the fence. And he said, we're in the middle of, he's aggravated now. He said, John, what you see is you see that all these people that are out here are dead, but they died with their dreams in them. And you still have your dreams in you. He still didn't do anything with it. Think about what I'm saying. What you're trying to help is somebody that you don't want them to die with their dreams in them.
Absolutely. The music that God's given each person is unique. And when you use that uniqueness and the giftedness of what you do, one of the things that we do in these courses that you've seen me do is to help a person to identify their unique factor, something that differentiates them from anyone else. There's only one Cletty, there's only one Bill, there's only one of each of the people listening to us right now. But when you really get a hold of what it is that God's given you to do, it gets exciting. You can't sleep at night. I woke up at 3 a.m. this morning with ideas. I wanted to stay in bed. I just couldn't. Ideas were just flowing through me. And so I got up probably for a couple hours, wrote them all down, and then I'm going to follow up and take action on them. Yeah. When you hear an idea that you're being called to, you've got to do something with it right away. In fact, research shows that if you don't do something with it within the next 24 hours, there's a 90% chance you'll never do anything with that idea.
Bill, the hydraulics genius I was talking about, Fred Mosley.
Yeah.
Fred had a 8th grade education, but he kept a notepad beside his bed on a nightstand and a pencil. He would wake up in the morning, in early morning, and he would not even remember it. And he would write down equations. And then when he got up in the morning, he'd say, I remember and it'd be equations of ideas that God gave him in the night. Just exactly what you're saying. A lot of people just don't get out of bed. I'm writing this book right now on Providence, and it came to me while I was in the hospital that now's the time to write. And I'm running out of years, but now's the time to write it and write it in a certain way. He told me exactly what to do. And so I've been doing that. And I've stayed with it week after week after week. And so what you're saying is important. People are not going to go anywhere if they don't do something different than what they're doing.
And when you find that there's something that you've been given that's true to your calling, and you don't do something about it, you feel this tug in you. Something that says, I can't keep doing this anymore. I have to do something different. It's kind of like at 3 a.m. I wanted to stay in bed too. And I was there for a little bit, but then I just simply said, Lord, what do you want me to do? He says, get up. I got some ideas for you. I want you to write it down. And for some people, they don't really know how to listen to the Lord. They don't know if they're really hearing the Lord. Do you want to comment about that? How do you teach somebody? So many people don't feel God's presence in their lives, or they don't know how to hear his voice. What do you say to them?
Nothing gives a person more dignity than to know they can hear the voice of God. Nothing. What you've done is you shared with us right now what gives you the dignity. And Linda can hear the voice of God. Y'all hear the voice of God together. I encourage people to listen to the voice of God. I heard the voice of God when I was a child. I never forgot it. I still remember the moment, the day that it came to me. And it was not that God was needling me, trying to get a point across. It was that he spoke to me clearly as a child. And I've always known the voice of God. I'm not ashamed to say that. I want other people to learn and to listen, that they can hear the voice of God. I think this verse is prophetic for today's program because of what direction you're taking this. But over in the Song of Solomon, chapter 1, it said, they made me the keeper of the vineyards, but mine own vineyard have I not kept. What you're doing is trying to help people take care of their assignment, take care of their part of it. I believe that God, each one of us, has been given an oversight spiritually of the life that God has given us. And that's what you're actually saying. And it seemed like it's so secular. It is. You're a secular human being, whether you believe it or not. And our spiritual and secular things, I believe the spiritual can influence the secular, not just the secular influencing the spiritual. What we're seeing with this Charlie Kirk thing that's taking place throughout the earth, it's a phenomenon. God knows how to do his business. He doesn't need us to tell him. And yet, at the same time, people have got to be trained. You have got a tool that you can use to help people become a greater success. What if you went through this and God gave you an ingenious idea? Or if you just saw how this works and you began to apply instead of just going at 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock for a break, 12 o'clock for lunch, 2.5 hours, 2:30 in the afternoon, taking a break, getting off at 5. That's a boring life. Did you know I think it like this? Boring people, bored people are boring. But, interesting people, they're interested in everything.
Yeah, they're curious.
Yeah, and you're interested in everything. Do you hear what I'm saying? I've talked to people that have been in Dunkin' Donuts or something like that, begin to strike up a conversation with them, and they sound like TV reporters because they sit around and listening to the television. They don't want to be out of the loop. But I've known people, one great preacher, his name was Wigglesworth, was a faith man. He didn't start ministering until he was 49. He was a plumber. He was a plumber in Bradford, England. And so he finally got a hold of something that transformed him, transformed people. People read his books still. But he was 49 years old when he finally got a revelation about what God wanted him to do. This is revelation. So it sounded very secular, and I'm way past that. Well, God bless your heart. Thank you for the success that you've had. But God may have something else for you.
And a lot of times people don't know how to reach people. Think about people in your own family. They have different points of view, and maybe you've created some damage there where people aren't willing to listen to you because they already know your point of view. They've shared their point of view, and they're different. And so as a result, you live in quiet desperation because you're no longer willing to have dialogue with each other.
That's it.
Well, what if you had the skill to be able to know how to bridge when you're close to somebody to create a fresh start, to create a new beginning where they're open to hearing ideas instead of being closed off? Those are the kind of skills that you need to be able to know how to be able to move people from where they are to where they want to be. And people always ask me, well, how do you know what to do with people, Bill? And I say it's really simple. I listen to what the Lord tells me to do, and I have the courage to share it in love. Because love is more powerful than anything else. And when people feel that connection, and they can see that there's a human connection, then they're more open to knowing their faith connection. And sometimes, I always say this, sometimes people know the Lord, but they don't know themselves. Some people don't know themselves, and they don't know the Lord. When you get both of those lined up, that's when you're really living heaven on earth. That's when you're really equipped to be able to make a difference in your life and your family's life, as well as whatever career that you're interested in.
It takes some pruning.
Yes.
Just like a guy that has an orchard or vineyard, it takes pruning.
Well, and having somebody that you trust who knows, you can get knowledge from all kinds of places today.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is making sure you get the best knowledge. And so for me, it's really simple. Are they spiritually based? Are they aligned with the Lord? And secondly, how long have they been doing and what are the results that they get? Because there's lots of theories and principles. To me, it's about getting results.
I want to go back to this verse because I can tie it with what you're saying. Mine own vineyard I have not kept. I'm talking to people that you've not taken care of your vineyard. You have a certain responsibility to take care of your own vineyard. But what does it take to take care of a vineyard? You got to protect the vineyard. I was in Mexico one time, deep in Mexico, when they had a freeze that went all the way down to the interior. And they had an orange grove. And the orange groves it literally, the freeze froze those trees. And so they had to go in, and there was just stumps that they had burned out, but burnt, bark on them. And they wrapped those. But they had to bring them back to life because that was their profitability, that was their income, that was their livelihood. And I began to think, well, what does a man that has a vineyard, what does he have to do to protect his own vineyard, take care of his own vineyard? And there has to be fertilization. You have to dig around it. You have to water it. You have to make sure. Orchards demand attention. Your life is like an orchard. And so what he's talking about is taking care of your own spiritual life, your well-being, secular responsibilities, your secular life. They're not two different things. They work together. And so it's important for you, as you're talking about, to make sure that you are open to new ideas.
Well, the people who are curious, I call them lifelong learners. The more you know you don't know. And you've always demonstrated, that's one of the things that I and Linda appreciate about you and what you've created here at Heritage, is that you're always willing to be open to new ideas. You're willing to allow people to use the gifts that they've been given. And a lot of times people want to control and mold them into who they think they need to be. What we're about is giving people the skills to be able to use the gifts God's given you, unique to you, that no one else can do but you. And then when you know the how and the why and the where and the when of doing those kinds of things with people, the world is your oyster, because now you can connect with anyone that you want to, whether it be on a personal level, a professional level. Maybe you're counseling or coaching someone. Maybe you're in ministry and you want to take yourself to the next level. Oftentimes what we see in churches, Pastor, is that many people have the spiritual direction, but they don't know how to connect with people or serve the needs of the people who are in their congregation. Yeah. And when they don't feed those needs, they go someplace else. So we have a lot of people that are in ministry or are leaders in their church, or they're wanting to equip more people within their team. Those are the kinds of people we're looking for as well.
Well, if they'll look at their life as an orchard, then they're going to have to produce something. There has to be produce. And this is what he's saying. He's trying to give you that. He's digging, he's fertilizing, he's watering, he's bringing back to life maybe a dream that you've allowed to die in you, just like, Fuzzy Zeller told John Daly, these people died with it, but you have your dream in you. And so when we begin to understand that, we understand that there's some people that are just quite, frankly, just disobedient to a call.
Absolutely.
I mean,
they're afraid. They're afraid to take the risk to really do what they've been told to do, because it requires you to take a risk. Tell that story that you were talking about earlier about how if you don't take the risks, you never find out. When was the last time you really did something that you were totally uncomfortable, that was way out of your zone of comfort?
Well, I think that David is a good illustration as a pastor. When you think he went and fought a giant and nobody else wanted to, there was a risk. In all of those Old Testament characters, there's risk factors. I'm not sure that's not one of the most overlooked parts of the scripture, that we cannot overlook the responsibility, the challenges that God puts before us. Don't look at this as a challenge, look at it as an opportunity for you to better yourself, to better yourself for your family, for your friends, for the corporate body that you may be a part of, your extended family. That's what is important about things like this. And I'm quite sure that more of these things are coming forward today. And our high communication skills with internet and the highway that takes us all around the world in seconds. My goodness.
Well, that's part of what we're doing is this the Kingdom Coach Mastermind program it's a 90-day program. Level 1 is a 90-day program. And so what we do is we go over a curriculum with them, and we give you the how-tos of how to be able to do it specifically, and then give you a chance to practice it, because it's one thing to get it in theory, but it's another thing when you're actually doing it. And so we show people how to do that, and then you can either be a part of our team, because we're wanting to equip our team to be able to influence other people in other nations or locally. Yeah. So you can become a part of our team, or you can do it on your own. Maybe the Lord's calling you to do it in a particular way. All we want to do is to speed up the learning process that gives people the skills and the tools to make a difference in people's lives. Whether you're a leader, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a counselor, whether you're in ministry, these are practical tools that can speed up your ability to impact lives.
You know what I like about it? It's universal. If truth is truth, it's universal. If 2 + 2 = 4 on the moon, 2 + 2 = 4 on Earth, it's universal. That's what this is. It's a universal thing. There's a scripture that's coming over my mind right now over in Proverbs chapter 29 and 25. It says, the fear of man bringeth a snare. What somebody may say about me, don't tell anybody, just do it. Go through the training. Begin to apply these things. See for yourself. Experiment. And I guarantee it'll bring life change to you.
You know, a thing that I like to mention to people is, are you experiencing the experience of the experience? Because a lot of times people have an idea in their head, but they really haven't integrated it in their own lives. You know, we can talk without notes here. We might be looking at some notes here and there, but the reality is when you really feel something in your heart, you don't need a notepad. You might need a little structure. But you need to be able to know what you're talking about so well that you don't need your notes, because it's inside you. It's something that is a part of you. It's a living thing that God's given you to be able to apply. And it's exciting. It's fun.
Let me share another verse, because I think if I keep this, look, I do biblical counseling. I counsel people out of the Bible. I took, counseling from the pros, actually did. I know how to take a verbatim. I know those things because when they were doing more counseling in the church, I happened to be in Houston, and some of the leading pastors in Houston knew that I needed some help. So they paid for me to go to a class where I was taught by one of the leading counselors. He was a chaplain in Methodist Hospital named Lucian Jones, a very famous man. And I loved being around him. He was from East Texas. He was just as colloquial as he could be. But boy, he was a brilliant counselor, how to get into people's lives. And to be a good counselor, you have to be a good listener. But I'm listening to Bill, and as I'm listening to Bill, it makes me think of a Bible verse in Hosea chapter 7. Listen to what it says in verse 8. Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. God hates a mixture. It said, Ephraim is a cake not turned. Can you imagine what happens to a cake when you don't turn it over? It doesn't get thoroughly, fully cooked. And then he says, strangers have devoured his strength. How many strangers have the people that you're reaching out to let into their lives that devour their strength? What is it that devours your strength? And then what it says is the fact that it's said, and he doesn't even realize it. Yeah. Devoured his strength, he doesn't even realize it. And then finally it said, gray hairs are here and there upon him, and he knoweth it not. I'm reaching out to people that are making excuses. God doesn't forgive excuses, folks. God forgives sin. It's not too late for you to prepare yourself, for you to better yourself, for you to take what you know of God, take what He's teaching and training, put it together, and reach out and help somebody, because love sees a need and fills it. That's the key. And so, Bill, as you go into this, let's talk a little bit more about not just the fact that they need a paper. I know people that have doctorates and they don't have any common sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, they just, I mean, they can't even fix their car when it breaks down. They don't even know how to get it to a garage. And so what happens is that when when we're like this, we forget to examine ourselves. Right now is a good time to examine yourself. For those that he's reaching out to, for that 12, he'd like to reach out and train specifically and thoroughly in 2026. Can you imagine being one of those people that he's training to help them become something they were not, to open up an area of their lives that they've never really recognized, to become what God wants them to be? Sometimes you just need a little help from your friends.
And when you choose to take the next step, when you say, I'm listening to this and this is making sense to me. I feel a tug in my heart. I feel the Lord's telling me to check into this more. Do something with that. Contact us, reach out to us, and find out what we can do. We'll listen to you because, you might not be the right fit. We're not just taking anybody. We have discernment too. And we're wanting people who are really committed to taking the next level. So if you feel you're led to that, then reach out to us. You can get a hold of us at, you can email me, bill@mcgrane.com. That's BILL at MCGRANE.com. You can contact Pastor Cleddy. You can you can call me if you want, 859-462-7929. And let's talk about this and find out if this is a right fit for you.
When you're talking about these things, it just opens up so much. Open up, not a can of worms, but it opens up realities, opens up new ideas. Just think what would happen if you went through this and your family could see, your children could see the change. Have you had cases where people have had their children come and tell you, thank you, Bill, for what you and Linda have done for our family?
All the time. They see the change in the parent, and as a result, that intrigues the children, whether they're young or older, to want to do that. As you know, which is another thing we wanted to talk about today, is our Get High in Life with Self-Esteem program.
That's a good thing.
And we've just been doing that here at the Heritage Fellowship Academy, the school there for the 8th graders. And we've done it for the high school students, and we're getting feedback now from the parents. We got feedback. I don't know if you've seen those evaluations from the students, but there's been impact that takes place where one of the questions we ask is, what have you noticed in your children?
Yes.
And we haven't gotten that feedback yet, but from over the years,
you will.
What happens is we see that these young people are impacting their children, their parents, because of what happened to them. And we also see when parents get new ideas, it creates a block. Right now, I'm dealing with a couple who the mother sees one way of parenting and the father sees another way of parenting. You never see that, do you? And so oftentimes that's the case, that just men have a different way of looking at it. In this case, the man is looser and the woman wants to be stricter, and the father says if you are so strict with them, you'll lose them, and so they're in conflict. Well, now, as they've been learning some new principles, they've discovered that they're not really listening to each other. They've already made up their mind because they've lived with each other for so long. They already know what they're going to say, so there's nothing new. So you've not learned how to break the cycle of dysfunction. And it begins with the decision to say, I want to hear you from a fresh perspective. Every day, I don't know if you hear this or not, but people tell you stories.
Oh, boy.
And they tell you the same story over and over again. So I've learned to listen every time they tell me the same story, because most people don't feel listened to. Listening is loving. And most of us want to talk and tell. But the reality is when you listen and then you hear what somebody's saying with a fresh heart and a fresh mind, it opens up a fresh new beginning of conversation. Because if you're both blocking heads, whoever it is, doesn't matter. You're a leader, you're influencing a country, you're trying to create a ministry, you're trying to get your kids to listen to you, you're trying to get your kids off drugs. Doesn't matter what the story is. You're trying to get your spouse to agree with you to go on vacation. Some people can't even get that to happen. Whatever the conflict is, you can't start with this. You got to find a way to create that bridge, that connection. And it begins usually with a little thing called love. How am I loving the person into change, not if they change. So, for example, I have no expectation of changing anybody. People think that's what the business I'm in. I don't change people. I give them the tools to help them to change themselves.
That's it.
And when you change internally, then people see that on the out, what's going on the inside changes on the outside. They say, something's different about you. You listen to me differently. And I always encourage people, when somebody said there's something different about you, ask the question, well, thank you. What are you noticing so that you specifically know what you're doing so that you'll remember to keep doing that thing?
Well, that's the key. You know, people tell me they have offenses in their life. We were talking earlier, and in a lot of homes, children are hurt by their parents simply because they don't feel like they're being listened to. And so hurt doesn't just stop with a hurt. I'm hurt like a dog is hit with a rock in a pack of dogs. You know, the one that's hurt is the one that yelps. And so take a child, a teenager. He doesn't get his own way. He gets hurt by his father or his mother. And then that manifests in bitterness. And a lot of people don't realize hurt just doesn't say, well, I'm hurt. It manifests and it begins to affect everybody in the home. Hurt manifests itself in bitterness. Bitterness manifests itself in rebellion. And so kids rebel. They begin to stay out late at night, quit doing their homework, quit, they're not taking care of business. They get involved in drugs, smoking, whatever it might be. And so because they're in rebellion, bitterness leads to rebellion, and rebellion leads to deception, and they think I'm okay.
Yeah.
I can whip this. I can be
strong enough.
I'm strong enough. And so I began to think about this, back to that verse, mine own vineyard I have not yet kept. What happens if you don't keep your vineyard? The fruit shrivels up. Love shrivels up. Joy shrivels up. Patience shrivels up. And you don't feed a child, it'll die. And so what you're doing is giving people. Vernell is an accountant. He's been with me 48 years. All of these years, every year or so, he has to go back and get refresher courses and find out what has changed in accounting at that time. What's wrong with the church when it doesn't say, hey, let's go back and get some, new ways of looking at things. Find out, well, bless God, I've closed the Bible in God's face. I don't have to do that. That's not the thing that God wants you to do. The thing that God wants you to do is keep an open mind. And said the greatest insanity is a forgotten destiny. And so when we forget our destinies, then that's insanity. But also insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, thinking you'll get a different results. And it's not even true with your family, with your children. I don't always like the results I got with my children, but at least they're on the right path. It doesn't say, when it says train up a child in the way he should go, and when he grows old, he won't depart from it. That's not a promise. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think it's a parable. Mm-hmm. And it means just to straighten the stick, straighten that sapling, straighten it. And then it will grow up and it'll be strong, become a mighty oak tree. But it came with a nut, because those children are nuts before they can ever become, less from a nut to a sap, to a sapling, and a sapling to the tree that God intended.
And then as they get older, they realize, wow, you did know something, Dad or Mom.
Yeah, we all have gone through things like that. But this course is going to be available, and they can sign up now even, or call and request material from you. Go ahead and tell them how to do this.
So the first step, if this is something you feel led to, that you'd like to be one of our 12 people that we train, we call it the Train the Trainer, the Mastermind program. If you feel led to do that, we basically are going to have a conversation with you so that you can find out more about it. And we can also check out to see if you qualify to be a part of this. If your heart is right, your intention is there, you're willing to be a lifelong learner, you very simply can give me a call. The phone number to call is 859-462-7929. I'll give that to you again, 859-462-7929. Or you can send me an email at bill, B-I-L-L, at mcgrane.com. I also want to talk about the Get High on Life program. we have been doing this at the church, and we have opportunities now to do this all over the world. And this Get High in Life program has been something when I was age 16.
Yeah, you wrote that.
I wrote this. I sat the old typewriter at that time, where you had to use the little white markers to fix the things that you did. But my parents really helped me put this together. And really the question, you got to start out with the right question. If you don't, you get the wrong answer.
Every time.
So the first question is, what are the skills and tools that our young people ages 8 to 18 need to be prepared for life? And with that question came this Get High in Life program. And so what we're looking for, and I appreciate, Pastor, your willingness to help us find those people who want to help us get this in the hands of more people. We have churches, we have countries that want to put this together and put it into their schools, into their ministries. In some places, they want to do it in their whole country. However, we need funding and support to do that. So we're looking for people who want to come together with us, whether it be in prayer or financial support or connecting us to other like-minded people or countries that want to get this in the hands of young people. Because if you prepare somebody with life skills, they're going to be able to do things at a very core level. And so the Get High in Life program is really based in these major areas. How do you build the self-esteem of a person? How do you find their true identity, who God made them to be? How to get along with parents and family. Understanding your attitudes and communications. A lot of times at that age group, they don't believe in themselves, or they have self-doubts, or their peer pressure is affecting them, or their social media is just annihilating them. And they're crippled because they're looking for approval from other people. Next is emotion management, because if you don't manage your emotions are going to manage you. And so often at this age, people are affected by that. And then how do you find the mentors and the coaches to help you become the people that you need to be, to find specific people that you need? If you need homework done, you know who the right people to go to are. If you need spiritual help, you know the right people to go to. And then last is goal setting and life planning, which is you can start your planning now for the life that God wanted you to be. Who would our kids be if they had these skills early in life?
If they knew who they were.
So we want to equip more people to do this program as well. So if you know people or want to help support it, you can get in touch with us as well by contacting me, bill@mcgrain.com, or the phone number 859-462-7929. But Pastor, I want to ask you a question, because you have really been a supporter of us, and you know lots of people. How come you support and endorse what we do? Help me to understand why you do this.
Well, number one, you're everlasting at it. I want to tell you right now, most people do not follow on in something. This one thing I do is what, Paul said, this one thing. And you've done one thing. You've stayed with it. Because of that, you can look back and you can see the models of success that people's lives have been transformed and changed through your efforts and through what you're doing. I noticed that you started this Get High in Life in 1974. Well, that's not just yesterday. I mean, you look at that, that's 25 and 50, 51 years, quickly. And you begin to think about the investment time you've put in it. And you've done it because you want to help people. Somebody had said, well, he just wants to make money. Well, I don't know that he makes a lot of money. He makes some. But at the same time, we all need to understand that is when people in capitalism quit trying to find something fresh and new, then our economy, our society will die. And I thank God for you being everlasting at it.
Well, thank you.
That's important because it means you believe in it.
Absolutely.
And you've seen it affect people's lives and change them. And I think we're using this with a school down in South America. We're working on that. And so we believe in it, and we want you to come and to take opportunity of this. This could be used in Sunday school.
Absolutely.
It could be used in schools here in America.
Yes.
And that's a very important thing today because, I worked with inner city kids a long time ago, and only a handful of them ever succeed. They come out of inner city schools. And so it's a beautiful thing to see the effectiveness of a program that's been, sought after for so long, and the lessons that he's learned as he's been teaching others and training others, the lessons he's added to this as a superb and excellent teacher to help people to become comfortable in their own skin. That's really what it's all about.
Absolutely. And then when once you get a taste of what it's like to be able to be in touch with who you really are, then you feel a calling to do something else to make a difference in somebody else's life. Because I'm doing this because I just am grateful that somebody taught me these things. Yeah. And if we don't have people who teach the truth, then you live a lie. And when you live a lie, you have generational issues, as we see in our country today and around the world. What if we prepared young people? What if we prepared you to be your best? And you say, well, I've already done that, or I'm too old for that. Well, you're never too old. No. You're in a model of staying fresh no matter what you're doing. And that's an inspiring thing to me, too.
The thing is that if it takes the truth to set you free, then it must take a lie to bind you. A lot of people are bound from even this, that you want to train others to be able to train others. They're bound by a lie. So they need to hear these truths. It can be just a key, just one revelation away from a breakthrough. Just be one thought that can transform them. My father-in-law was a faith preacher, and he made a statement one time to a pastor, and he was teaching in his church. His church was a washteria, literally a washteria. They'd bought an old washteria. They had a real. He was a short guy, so he had a real high platform where he looked down on the people. He did that on purpose. He really did. He was a United States Marine that came back through the Golden Gate, and he had fought the battles over there, in the Korean War. And as he came back through, he had put his suit underneath his bed, and so it ironed his suit just by him sleeping on it all the way across the Pacific. And he was quite a guy, but he heard my father-in-law say, persistence is greater than genius. And it changed his life. He said, I may not be a genius, but I can be persistent. My father-in-law said he could sell snowballs to Eskimos. That's how persistent he was. And yet he became a very, very well-known pastor and a wonderful preacher of the gospel. I loved hearing him. His name was B.H. Clendenin, and he preached morning meetings for some of the great pastors and great evangelists in America. So what we're saying is you buy the truth and you sell it not. You buy the truth. You buy truth, and then you don't put it up for sale, because you know it works.
Well, and you have discernment. One of the things is, how do you know today what's real? There's so much fake news, there's so much fake everything. AI can change all kinds of pictures and make you say things that you didn't even say. How do you know how do you discern what's really going on? You do that by educating yourself and being in the Word and having the skills and the tools to be able to make those changes that are necessary, because you have discernment. And that is real wisdom.
Discernment, a lot of people think of discernment of spiritual things. But discernment also has just to do with right and wrong.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of people don't realize how practical discernment is. But there is discerning of spirits as a deeper discernment that you know more than just intuitively. You know because there's a gift that operates in you from God. So we thank you for being with us today here on Faith Clinic. Bill, thank you. I always enjoy talking with you. I learn something every time, and we hope you learn something. Why don't you give them a call? You can be a greater you. You can be a leader. You can bless the next generation. Isn't that what it's all about?
Absolutely.
And so let's go to work. Keep looking up, friends. God really is looking down.